Hey there, and thanks for joining us on Chicago Tonight, Black Voices. I'm Brandis Friedman. On the show tonight,
I present to you the people's budget.
Mayor Johnson proposes a $16 billion spending plan, what it means for policing and public safety. Private school leaders fight to save a state scholarship program. And efforts to rename a Chicago neighborhood with close ties to the history of slavery. And now to some of today's top stories. Republicans are nominating Louisiana Congressman Steve Scalise to be the next U.S. House Speaker, but it's still not clear when the chamber will vote on it.
We have a lot of work to do, not just in the House for the people of this country, but we see how dangerous of a world it is and how things can change so quickly. We need to make sure we're sending a message to people all throughout the world that the House is open and doing the people's business, making sure that we're unequivocally standing in our first resolution that we pass under Speaker Steve Scalise will be to make it clear that we stand with Israel.
In private balloting in the Capitol, House Republicans chose Scalise over Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan, who chairs the House Judiciary Committee and is backed by former President Donald Trump. Scalise, who is battling blood cancer, is also a survivor of a shooting that targeted lawmakers at a congressional baseball game practice in 2017. Democrats intend to nominate House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries of New York. A Skokie man is facing charges after he allegedly phoned in more than a dozen fake bomb threats to several Chicago suburbs. Skokie police announced 23-year-old Jacob Spiro has been charged with 2 counts of falsely making a terrorist threat and 1 count of disorderly conduct. Police say they've received 16 reports of bomb and violence threats between September and October. Police departments in Morton Grove, Niles, Wilmette, Glenview, and Northbrook also received similar reports during that time. None of the threats were found to be credible. Chicago Public School students testing for the district's selective enrollment high schools had to stop taking the test today over technical issues with the testing platform. The high school admissions test for 8th grade students is an hour long with 30 minutes for math and 30 minutes for reading. The district says it's working with the vendor to resolve the issue and provide alternative testing dates. Non-CPS students are scheduled to take the test as early as this weekend. Are you feeling lucky? Well, you might need to if you hope to win tonight's Powerball jackpot. The prize stands at $1.7 billion with a B dollars. That's the second largest in U.S. history. If you win the jackpot, if you win, you can choose an annuitized prize worth $1.7 billion or a lump sum payment around $756 million. That's all. That's, of course, before Uncle Sam's cut. Powerball says the odds of winning the grand prize are 1 in 292 million. It's worth a shot. Tonight's drawing happens just before 10. Up next, we dig into Mayor Johnson's first budget proposal. Heather Sharon joins us right after this.
Chicago Tonight, Black Voices is made possible in part by Fifth Third Bank and by the support of these donors.
At Fifth Third, we believe when diverse voices are heard and empowered, communities are made stronger, lives are made better, and the future holds greater promise for all. That's why we're proud to support Chicago Tonight Black Voices. Together, we can make a difference. Together, we can drive change.
Mayor Brandon Johnson unveils his first budget proposal today, a $16.6 billion spending plan for 2024. The plan eliminates a $538 million shortfall and prioritizes new investments in affordable housing, mental health services, and environmental justice without raising taxes or fees.
I was elected to end this government's addiction to the regressive taxation that has pushed working families to the brink, and that begins today.
WTTW News reporter Heather Sharon joins us now with more on Johnson's first budget. So as we mentioned, Heather, he had to close a $538 million gap to make good on promises to invest in working class Chicagoans. Did he pull this off?
Well, he had spent the last several weeks seeking to tamp down expectations that he could meet those sky-high promises. And today he cast this budget as a down payment on those promises, saying there would be enough money to open 2 new mental health clinics in existing city facility and to expand the city's alternate 911 response, which sends counselors and addiction specialists to those in mental health crisis. He acknowledged, though, that there's a lot more to do Chicago and the city's resources are limited by a number of different factors, including the pension crisis.
Of course. Now, he also proposed restructuring the Chicago Police Department. What does he want to change?
Well, he wants to take nearly 400 of the department's nearly 11,700 sworn positions and turn them into civilian positions. So those people would no longer have police powers. They wouldn't have a badge or be able to arrest people. He says that will free up officers to get on the street and not have to do administrative duty or other things, and give taxpayers more bang for their buck. Now, what he didn't do today was eliminate any of the department's more than 1,700 vacancies, and the department's budget is set to rise to $1.99 billion in 2024, up from $1.94 billion this year.
So nearly $2 billion. He spent much of his address today speaking directly to Black Chicagoans. Tell us why.
Well, it's clear that he sees the decisions made by his predecessors going back a generation as falling hardest on Black Chicagoans. And he says that that's the reason that there's been an exodus of Black Chicagoans and why they're more likely to be unhoused or unemployed or to suffer from illness or even mental illness. And he says that his job is to start reversing that. It also comes at a time where there's a significant amount of anger and frustration in the Black community about the city's response to the migrants who have arrived in Chicago. The city has scrambled to provide housing and health care and food for nearly 18,000 people, all here in Chicago legally, but not necessarily Chicagoans. And that has rankled members of the Black community who have seen their neighborhoods suffer under decades of disinvestment, and they want to know, where's ours? Johnson today asked the city council to endorse a spending plan that essentially asks the city to get behind him and believe that the city can do both, just not all at once.
Yeah, that division is something that we just spoke about last week here on Chicago Tonight, Black Voices, with some community members. Heather Sharon, thank you so much.
Thanks, Brandis.
And you can read Heather's full story on our website. That's WTTW.com/news. Students at private schools across Illinois are at risk of losing their scholarships. That is if state lawmakers don't extend the Invest in Kids Act, which is slated to end December 31st. The law gives tax credits to residents who make authorized contributions to scholarship-granting organizations. Those contributions, in turn, provide scholarships for low-income families to attend qualified, non-public schools. Joining us now with their thoughts on whether the program should be extended are G2 Brown, National Director of the Journey for Justice Alliance; Aisha Noble, a parent of a Chicago public school student; Shaka Rawls, principal of Leo High School, a private all-male Catholic school in Auburn Gresham; and Zion Cornell Strickland, a senior at Leo High School. Thanks to all four of you for joining us. Principal Rawls, let's start with you. Why do you think this program should be extended?
What I've seen over the last 4 years is a growth in the number of students that we're able to serve at Leo High School. I've seen students like Zion and a number of other students who've benefited from this program. It's helped their families out financially. And we've also been able to expand programming inside of our schools, expand mental health services, expand after-school offerings. And I think that this is a great opportunity for us to look at a variety of different methods that we educate Black and brown students in Chicago, particularly at Leo High School, particularly Black males.
What would happen to students who are receiving the scholarships if the program is not extended?
So we have about 37 students who are receiving a scholarship right now, and unfortunately those 37 students will be forced to burden the tuition that's due at Leo High School. Exactly.
Okay. Zion, you're in your 4th year as a scholarship recipient of this program, a senior. What impact has it had on your education?
It's allowed me to go to a great school and be able to do the things that I wish to achieve in life. And it's also allowed me to make friends and friendships that I most likely wouldn't have gotten if I didn't go to Leo. And it's also lessened the burden that my mom has had to go through with the payment, because I still remember the day she was excited. She was like, "Oh, I got the scholarship." And I'll be honest, I didn't really know what it was, but I was excited because she was happy.
G2, you've been advocating against this program from both a parent perspective as well as an education organizer. Tell us why.
Well, first, I want to say I have great respect for Shaka Rawls. We worked together at Burke Elementary School many years ago, and I know he's an amazing educator and he does amazing work. So I want to start there. I think the issue with using public funds for private schools does not dissuade the work that's happening at Leo High School. But what it speaks to is a tactic of education that does not address the inequity that exists in public education. The vouchers as a tool were created by Milton Friedman. And when they took over Chile, and he went to Chile with what they called the Chicago Boys, his students, and they created the world's first charter system, which exists today as one of the most inequitable school systems on the planet, where low-income students get vouchers to go to poor schools, middle-class students get vouchers to go to what in essence are charters, and wealthy students get vouchers to go to fabulous schools. I think and I think that this program can be extended just without public money.
Well, is it considered public money, the way the donations are made? If a taxpayer donates to one of the scholarship granting organizations, they receive a tax break of 75%. I think the framers of this bill at the time felt like that was a way to work around using tax dollars. Do you still see this as using tax dollars?
Yes, ma'am. But I think it's a bigger issue, too, that outside of Leo, there's a school on the west side that I used to do a program in called Key. When Key was closed, it had 95% black enrollment. Today, the school that runs a voucher program out of Key only has 27% black enrollment. So what we see across the country is that vouchers as a tool have been used to actually exacerbate inequity instead of making schools more equitable. What gives you a sense of the soul of the voucher program is who funds it. And it's overall funded by the Koch brothers. These are the same people that also funded the mass chartering of schools and school closings throughout the United States, as well as Bessie Devas.
Bessie Devas, of course, former Secretary of Education under President
Absolutely.
Trump. I want to get Aisha in here because you're a CPS parent. Yes. What about you? Do you think this type of scholarship is beneficial to students and their families?
Yeah, to G2's point, I just honor Zion and his potential. He's just a lovely.
He's going places.
He's going places, right? But as G2 shared, my concern as a CPS parent is that we're on the precipice as far as budgets are concerned at CPS. There's a budget shortfall of $600 million. The voucher program is siphoning approximately what we anticipate to be $75 million to further exacerbate, an already distressed system, and allowing those funds to be funneled to private schools that don't have to accommodate English language learners, doesn't have to accommodate kids with special ed needs. So that is a problem. And also it's an assault on our democracy, quite frankly, because this is a part of the broader plan of Ms. DeVos, the Kochs, so on and so forth, to destabilize and siphon as much resources out of CPS and public schools as a whole.
Principal Rawls, what do you say to what some of what we just heard from Aisha Noble?
I think that they make valid points, and I think the idea of us trying to use this program to solve inequities is it's not going to happen here. But I think that this is one opportunity where you can see that there are students like Zion all over Leo High School. We have 37 students on scholarship, and they're benefiting from the program. So what can't be denied is the fact that they have a sense of brotherhood, a sense of safety, a sense of community at Leo. Are there places where the application may not be the same? That's absolutely right. But I think with all legislation, there's always the outcomes, the intended outcomes, and the unintended outcomes. I think that when Chicago moved to the small schools model in 2000, although the idea of having small, malleable schools was a smart idea, but closing dozens of schools in Chicago had some unintended outcomes that were really bad. So I think that with all legislation, we can work to retool it so that it's actually helping schools like Leo, but not disadvantaging schools, regular public schools in Chicago.
So I want to get to a little bit more, and obviously I'll come back to both of you. Now, of the students who received 2021-22 scholarships to attend private school, about 57% were white, almost 30% Latino, and just under 18% black. That is according to our colleagues at Chalk Beat Chicago. And of course, these are statewide numbers, not Chicago specific. Shaka, do you think this program is meeting demographic goals with those numbers?
Well, when you talk about statewide numbers, and the program is designed so that people can allocate money to particular schools, right? And so that means that the schools that are serving particular populations right, will get money. So it won't meet it statewide just because of the disparity, right? The downstate numbers are going to be larger. You have rural school districts who are also taking advantage of the program. But I think that the 20% of that number, the 17.9% of that number that do benefit shouldn't be damaged in the process of us trying to create a more equitable system. So I think that this is an opportunity for us to at least retool a program that's helping at least 25% of my population.
Aisha, what do those numbers tell you about the program's impact?
You know, my understanding is that I want to see the receipts as a CPS parent, right? We hear a lot about, and I was raised by a sharecropper, okay? My mom went to DuSable. I went through CPS. My oldest is going through CPS. And I understand viscerally through my mother what growing up in poverty looks like. But what this voucher system is doing is deepening the segregation that's happening. I think you alluded to those numbers, right? And taking us back, in my opinion, to that Jim Crow South. Who is benefiting from this? There's no accountability. I would love to see the numbers. And I think in the 6 years that the vouchers have been around, is the Illinois State Board that's supposed to provide some kind of reporting. Where is it?
Zion, you mentioned that the scholarship path meant a lot to your mom in particular, and that it really took off a burden for her. Obviously, at the time that you received the scholarship, you didn't know that it was coming until it did. But tell us more about, about this burden that it relieved for her. What was the alternative for you if not for the scholarship?
So this burden, when it got released, it had helped me go to a college tour over the summer. And on a college tour, I ended up seeing the Berkeley, California University. And I had a whole week in California, and I was able to experience many different things and also pick my future college out for myself and finalize my decision. So this creditship, getting rid of the burden, has really helped my mom, and it helped me connect with more people so I could better my future. And I just think that if this is gone, not other kids will be able to have this same experience and learn as much as I did.
G2, we've got a few seconds left. A lot of people believe that this program gives parents choices for where their students can go to school, especially those who cannot afford the high price of a private school sometimes. Shouldn't parents have that choice?
I think that when you don't have an equitable school system, you don't have choice, because that means you don't have the choice of a world-class neighborhood school within safe walking distance of your home, like other folks have in their communities. And so I think you have the illusion of choice. But if a school district through inequity throws a grenade in your neighborhood school, then the parents grab their children and take them wherever. And as you know, I've been involved with several of those types of fights where we know that our school was not a failing school, but as a public, we've been failed. So I think that the fight for the city of Chicago is to finally make Chicago an equitable school district. I think that is the work. Right.
That is the work. And G2, I know you and I have talked about this a good bit over the years. Really quick, Zion, we've got 5 seconds. What are we studying when we go to UC Berkeley?
Video game programming.
Okay, best of luck to you. Thanks to all of you for joining us. All right.
Thank you.
Up next, a push to rename a neighborhood on the city's south side right after this. A local alderperson is proposing a name change for his South Side neighborhood. Douglas is currently named after Stephen Douglas, a 19th century political figure in Illinois whose beliefs and actions were deeply intertwined with the history of slavery. Now, the 4th Ward alderman is looking to add an S at the end of that name to represent famed abolitionist Frederick Douglass, 2 S's. This follows a similar movement, as you might recall, in Chicago's West Side in the renaming of Douglas Park in 2020. Joining us now with more are Alderman Lamont Robinson of the 4th Ward, which includes parts of the Douglas community, and Lila Johnson, an 8th grade student at Village Leadership Academy. Her school led the youth grassroots movement to change the name of Douglas Park on the west side. Thanks to you both for joining us. Alderman, starting with you, why push for this name change?
The Bronzeville community is a historic community that many African Americans have come through this community. Jazz, business, entertainment, politics. And so to change a name to Frederick Douglass, someone that was an abolitionist, someone that gave so much to the African American community, why not? We need to make sure that our young people, like Layla next to me, understand its history and be able to live in a community that supports the African American community and that history. And so that's why we are looking to change the name.
So as we know, and as we've mentioned, there's a similar movement led by students at the Village Leadership Academy to rename Douglas Park on the west side after abolitionists Frederick Douglass and Anna Murray Douglas. You all succeeded, or the students succeeded. Layla, what did your school take away from or learn from that movement?
I believe our school took away that change is possible, and the key is to be persistent, because this project took several years, and I believe that inspired us to do more with several of our other grassroots campaigns.
More grassroots campaigns, go on.
One of our grassroots campaigns, for example, is smoking. A few years ago that, well, not changed the law, but we changed certain policies around smoking and the legal age that you have to be to smoke. And several other grassroots campaigns include violence in media, hunger. One time we organized a meeting where we gave food to the homeless, etc., and several other things.
So learning how to organize around
Yes.
different campaigns and different topics, it sounds like, including this one. Alderman, why is a name, whether it be the name of a park or a neighborhood, why is the name important to the people of the community?
The name is important because it shows us that we need a sense of community, that also it's important for our young people to understand their history. And so when I'm long gone, that history will be there, and that's why it's important for us to be able to know our history and change the name from Douglas to Frederick Douglass.
Layla, how important would you say it is for young people like yourself, your classmates, to sort of take charge in a grassroots effort, that the students are doing it versus the grown-ups?
I think it's very important because at VLA we say tomorrow belongs to those who are prepared today. And tomorrow, or the future, is the youth. And as the Alderman said, he will be long gone and the youth will be here wallowing in whatever the future generation have set for them. And it's very important to better the communities and inspire others around the world to take charge and fight for what they believe is right.
How do you think it's helped you as a student?
I think it's helped me by inspiring me to be more productive and not blunt, but positive, and working to make a change towards our communities and what is important and right.
Okay. Alderman, why Frederick Douglass? What was his relationship or connection to Chicago?
So many people might not know, Brandes, that Frederick Douglass spent a year in Chicago. And so he had ties to Chicago. He also had ties to Ida B. Wells. He connected Ida B. Wells to her husband. And so there is certainly a history there with not only Ida B. Wells, but again, him living in the city of Chicago. And so it goes back to why it's important for us to be able to make sure that our young people know the history. And that's a direct connect to why we're looking to make this name change. And then also looking to make investments in the neighborhood. I secured $150 million, $150,000, excuse me.
$150 million would be great.
That would be great for Persian Elementary School, for an HVAC system. And so again, not only is the name change there, but we also need to make sure that we're investing in our neighborhoods as well.
You held a community meeting about this last night. What are you hearing from residents so far?
Not only the community meeting, but I've been receiving calls and emails with positive responses to this name change, and many people didn't know the history. Many people just think about Bronzeville. They didn't know that the history of Douglass and his connection to slavery, unfortunately, but a lot of positive responses from the community. And that is why we brought the community in, because we wanted to make sure that the community had input in this name change.
And what are the next steps for this proposal?
The next steps is to go to the City Council for approval. And once we go through City Council and we will get that approval, I'm sure that this neighborhood will have a new name.
Okay, then we'll have to leave it there. We'll be following this, obviously. Alderman Lamont Robinson, Lila Johnson, thank you so much for joining us.
Brandis, thank you for the opportunity.
Of course. And that's our show for tonight. Be sure to check out our website, WTTW.com/news, for the very latest from WTTW News. And join us tomorrow night at 5:30 and 10 for Chicago Tonight Latino Voices. Borrowers are feeling the weight of federal loan payments, now resuming after a nearly 3-year pause. And local astronomer Joe Guzman is back to show us how to safely view this weekend's partial solar eclipse. Now, for all of us here at Chicago Tonight Black Voices, I'm Brandis Friedman. Stay healthy and safe, and have a good night.
Closed captioning is made possible by Robert A. Clifford and Clifford Law Offices, a personal injury law firm dedicated to preserving the dignity and rights of all individuals.